Hi, Brandy Altman at SMPTE Day 2. We're here with Carl Peel from Killer Tracks and composer Cyrus Reynolds, and we're going to talk a little bit about licensing music, production music, and just the process. Carl, why don't we start with you? What are you seeing in terms of trends, and can you talk about how you work with clients to make the process easier?
Well, the clients are becoming more and more voracious for music, and I also noticed that it seems like a lot of companies are shrinking their music departments, so a lot of TV and video producers are calling us directly, writing in directly, looking for music. So they may not be the most up-to-date with all their musical terms or really know music. They just kind of know what they want the music to do.
They're closing their departments or making it a little smaller for money purposes?
Probably,
Is it budgeting?
I'm sure. I'm sure. Music is always the last element of anything where it's like, oh, we don't have any more budget for that. We spent it all on the catering.
That's right. Yeah, but take the music away, and then what are you left with?
But you got to deal with what you're left with.
Correct.
You got to work with what you have. But so it's just more incumbent on music companies to provide a lot of service. So that's a big part of why they come to production music companies, composers. I'm sure composers have to work more and more directly with producers, directors, and it's probably a lot more back and forth.
Absolutely.
As you kind of play translator to what the director and the producers are wanting.
And do they typically give examples of what they want? Or
That's
they like, we want like a
That's the most helpful thing. Okay. Yeah, using adjectives is not helpful at all.
You want it warm and angry. And
exactly. And oftentimes it's completely off the mark, and just they want a certain feeling, and they want synth pop, but they describe it as like edgy, post rock or something, and it's just completely mixed up. So references, like usually like a triangulation of references is really helpful, for what we do at least.
It saves, and for a long time in the business in production music, you didn't want to use band names and song names and stuff because you just want to stay away from any copyright potential, infringement potential. If something is like a grunge rock song, you don't want to say Nirvana because it's in the same wheelhouse. And if someone goes, well, that's kind of like Nirvana, that seems problematic, you just want to stay away.
Sure.
But the thing is everyone does because it's a shortcut. If I say I'm looking for some like angsty rock with guitars, but like, cheaper Fender Jaguar guitars rather than a really nice deep sound, you've lost everyone.
Yeah.
But if you just say, I'm looking at something like that Nirvana sound,
right,
everyone knows what you mean.
Right.
Even the young kids who weren't born during Nirvana.
Right.
They
Nirvana
know to
era.
reference that. But that makes your lives easier, and you could provide the client with something that they actually want versus something that's not.
It's just a shortcut. It's a quick way to get there. Save time. So services, I think it's more and more important to help clients find that they want. They're also under the gun. They're doing, all these video editors, video producers, directors, they're doing a lot more work with a lot less resources, so they're under the gun too. They don't have the time to be searching giant catalogs of music for the song they want, or to be running around town, like meeting with composers and music supervisors to it's a lot of time.
So they're using you as the point of contact, and then you go off.
More and more, yeah.
And then, could you talk about your process a bit? So obviously you're a songwriter, musician.
Right.
Did you expect to be doing this kind of music, or did it sort of?
No, I have a classical background. I studied at the Royal Academy of Music in London and did that whole kind of route, and then got into the pop side of things, and then everything just was chaos after that. But it's for me, it's harkening back to that and combining that. And my first project with Killer Tracks was working with an orchestra and doing something of really kind of an epic size, and that was just instant joy for me and kind of working in that process. And that's what I've been continuing to do with them, is those kind of formats where we're taking these huge orchestral emotional sounds with songs basically that we write in our studios in Los Angeles, and then kind of put that all together. But I wanted to kind of bounce off what you were saying earlier. It's not always about meeting like client requests or specific actual kind of buzzwords or anything. Sometimes we try to just create music that we know will be kind of very forward, and then it'll be very desirable because you just kind of pick up on waves and trends and what kind of is like the freshest sound at the moment before necessarily it becomes the most standard thing. Because sometimes by the time you actually meet let's say like right now, bluesy, stompy, tracks like Imagine Dragons or whatever are very in demand. By the time you get around to actually releasing that and it's mastered, it's so overdone, that kind of process. So sometimes it's good to just get in there, create something really exciting. You make mistakes, but also you really hit gold sometimes with that.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to ask you, Cyrus, do you put on a different hat when you're like, I'm sitting down today and I'm writing for, Killer Tracks, or are you just like, I feel something and I'm going to write, and if it works, it works?
The only difference is structure. You just have to be mindful of structure, of the way things are paced, and we'll work with just film in general. A lot of times if I'm writing something that I know is meant to go for like promo type length of things, 1.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, you just kind of phase it in the right way, but you still put the same heart and the same content into it. And that it just makes sure that in the end it's like an instant kind of thing, because you hear all sorts of stories about people looking at waveforms to decide if they want to use a track or not. Just these kind of things where it's like they don't even take a second to listen to it. And so little things like breaks and a lot are important, but otherwise I try not to let kind of outside influences push it around too much.
But we even in our briefs, we try to give composers a lot of leeway to just kind of do what they're doing, which is different than the way we used to work, say, 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, the composers that worked in production music were more generalists. These were people who might have a staff music gig at Paramount Television. They're writing 5 cues for a soap opera, they're writing a couple cues for a sitcom at night, they're doing, and they're sort of masters of it, everything. They're really well-schooled musicians, but it's like a guy my age doing like really street hip-hop, right, and rock and
generic,
classical. So you would rely on those guys because they could get the productions done, and you could talk with them and they really kind of get what you're after. Now everything's specialized, so you hire composers to do what they do, right? You get a much better result. And the clients and people in general, they may not be able to articulate it, but they know when you can just feel and tell when something is legit, not written to be something specific or wedged in.
Not sort of canned, like way back when it would be the canned sounds, and that's not the case anymore. I would imagine it's
and part of that is the tools are all mixing. So it's like the tools that computer production used to be sort of a hallmark of production music back in the early days. I mean, one of the Killer Tracks had sort of come up by coming from a jingle house where everything was live, and so we had a good advantage then. Now everyone's doing it all over. A lot of it's live, a lot of it's in the box. A lot of it's hybrid because you need that oomph from the samples, but you need the feel from live instruments. And the clients are just more and more sophisticated, and they can tell if their BS radar is very high.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's too, like having that flexibility that Carl mentioned is really important too. Like a lot of the big orchestral albums we've worked on together, the most successful songs that I've noticed have been happy accidents in a way. Like the first one, the brief was like, just do, cinematic, orchestral things for trailers or whatever, and maybe some like vocally sounds. And we just end up doing a full-on song. And then it was used for The Americans and Walking Dead and all these campaigns.
Very cool.
So that actually kind of worked. And let's do another one. Let's do one that's like pop with the orchestra. And then we did this song called The Wolves that has been used in like Assassin's Creed and like a lot of video game things. That was not pop at all, but just had this really cool, weird vibe with the orchestra and vocals and like. So it's kind of just rolling with that creativity and just making the best possible result. And then also having an awesome marketing team and kind of getting in front of the right people is important too. But,
that's what we try to, leave it open. I mean, sometimes we will have a very specific brief because we're going after something specific. Like, because clients have said, we need X. You don't have enough X. Let's get X. So we try to jump on it. And sometimes we'll get something back. It's like, okay, that's not what we were talking about, but it's really great. And so then it's up to us to figure out, what is this? How, and on the client end, clients love discovering cool stuff.
Oh, sure.
I mean, everyone got into working with music because we all had the best taste of everybody, and that still holds true. So all the clients, everyone, it's like they're doing their job because they have the best taste, and that's what makes shows, that's what makes advertisements and everything. It's that particular vision that really kind of comes out a lot of
Right.
times from happy accidents and
Right.
stuff. Now you have to allow that to happen,
Exactly,
or
yeah.
else.
Sure. Yeah, it's part of the creative process.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Carl, Cyrus, thank you so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
come back again.
All right.
All right. Take care, guys.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks.